Everyone, even this guy, I haven't seen him in so long. How are you?
It was nice when they compared to.
I had to go to
Coaches are out there doing it.
Yeah.
There's something humorous that they're not doing.
At least you got an air conditioner, right?
Yeah. I got a shaving, sometimes work with it, sometimes doesn't.
That's bad.
I put the shop and they put a new damper, they put a new compressor.
But you just do it on the utilities, on the drills and stuff. Yeah.
What year is it?
Can't find the problem.
You're working, huh?
You look like I did up in the field. Yeah.
On the bottom, seems like a tree.
Throw a shirt on. Half presentable.
We have one. Work on that footwork. I just beat people.
When you need it, it don't work.
He knows how to leave them on. You can still do it.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's called a purpose, but we need to check that, see they check.
How are you?
How are you doing?
Hey, hello, sir. How are you?
Hello, sir, how you doing? Fred Amaro, nice to meet you.
Good evening.
Fred Amaro, nice to meet you.
How you doing, sir? All right.
They keep extras up here. Sorry about that. You doing up there?
That's my mark.
I'll tell her.
You know what, that's a chair right there.
They're in shorts right now.
It all falls at his feet when he says none.
You want?
Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you?
You want to get a chair from over there.
¿Cómo estás, sir? ¿Cómo estás? No reason for this.
Well, you gonna have the camera facing. I don't want to be the main camera.
I gotta do that sometimes too, because I ain't got time for that.
Somebody needs that chair, they can have it. Mr. Wilson, if somebody needs that chair, they can have it, because I'll probably wind up standing because of the shape of the room.
Okay.
And you're young.
Yeah.
Sort of.
And,
Very young.
it's been a long time I've been in one place like that.
I'm doing well.
This last year you might be interested.
How are you?
I got right now.
I understand your brother played over at, I didn't. I go Friday. They were
Yeah, good time with me.
Good to see you.
we know very well.
I'm not their attorney.
They have a website. Regular practice, meetings on the website.
That's very good.
To be there. It wasn't.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm not their attorney.
How are you? Mr. One?
Past 7.
You just come?
Yeah, he does.
Okay. Thank you. FEDC special meeting July 23rd, 2012. Meeting is called to order at 7:05. Board members present are Freddie Almaro, Mr. Gabino Cantu, Rebecca Silva, Fred Gonzalez, David Longoria, Juan Ortiz, myself, Sarah Mendoza, Colonel Jesse Perez, and our attorney, Dominic Carvajal. Okay. You have the agenda present, CNA to adopt a resolution authorizing financial agreement with the government capital corp to refinance certain debt and for the enhancement and or expansion of our sports facility for the benefit of the community of Floresville. Colonel?
As you'll recall, last year about this time, or right about the time we're doing the budget, actually on our September the 12th meeting, we had an action, the board took an action and approved an amount of $125,000 per year for 20 years, starting in fiscal year 2013, for the enhancement and expansion of sports facilities to benefit the youth of the city. And then I wanted to say that, we would not own the debt, but rather pay the amount pledged to cities required on an annual basis for the debt service. Since that time, certain things have occurred. We still have that agreement or that pledge that we made to the city. And I was asked to give a review of the budget. And can the FEC pay $125,000 a year for 20 years, and what impact would it have on the FEC? We did that. I presented that to the board, and in my opinion, my estimation as the executive director, I believe that we can pay that amount, and I still believe that we can do that, and we can still maintain the projects that we have, and then take care of other things that we're doing on behalf of the city in terms of economic development. So that's not an issue. Since then, City Council has had many meetings, and in one of their last meetings on June the 21st, they took action, and this is what they requested or agreed to do. To request the Executive Director and the Board of the Floresville Economic Development Council to work with the City Manager to develop and implement alternative methods for funding the recreation/sports complex with the advice and consent and counsel of bond counsel and the financial advisor. In that regard, and I've had several meetings with different groups, and I've met with finance people, and what you have today is a consideration. You have two documents, resolution to the Board of Directors regarding loan, and two different resolutions, and one is to, in essence, for a $2.1 million loan, and then all the term of the loan, the final contract, etc., have not yet been worked out. But what you would be approving today is, do you want to approve the FEC to enter into a loan agreement with this particular company, Government Capital Corporation, to borrow that money to accomplish the goal that we had set back in September of 2011. And the term, the amounts that we would pay are under consideration. There's still, the details are still being worked out on that note. The second part of the action tonight, the second resolution, would be to refinance the current loan that we now have with Wells Fargo. And the payoff balance of that, you have the document here. It's $211,374. This is a loan that we borrowed back in 2001. We consolidated some smaller notes that we had, and then we also purchased what we call the business park, Martin property, 305 acres. And I think at the time we borrowed about, and again, I don't have the exact number, it was about $720,000 to refinance several smaller loans, and then also to purchase this particular property for the development of a business park. We've done well with that note. We're pretty much paid off. We still owe $211,374. In order for us to move forward and borrow money to work on the sports facility, enhance the parks, improve the parks that we have, then part of that then would be that this particular note that we have, we would borrow money, pay it off, and then, you know, pay this new, I'll give you that now. I have that document already. If you look at this particular document, and what this does, it reschedules the payments on the note. We pay off Wells Fargo. Currently, we have a note of 4.6% interest, and it's a variable rate. And by that means, it depends on what the market's doing over term, what's going to happen to our note. Under this term, the rate of the note is 2.823%. That's the interest rate. So at the end of the term, we would save in the neighborhood of about $12,000, $13,000 as a final payoff. So we actually would save money by, you know, refinancing this particular note and then enter into this other agreement. It's imperative on our part to refinance this note, and then, you know, we have one lender in essence and not two different lenders. Any lender would do that, you know. The lender that we're borrowing the most money wants to have the first lien, and they don't want to have a smaller note in front of them that could impact our ability to repay the larger note. So this is, if you look at it, then it makes sense to refinance this particular note, pay it off, and then we owe the money to one lender, and we owe it at a lower rate. Our payoff balance at the end would be less than what it is now. And then it basically consolidates, and, you know, we pay one lender. So those are two basic actions that we're being requested to take on today. Okay. In your packet, you have several documents. I'll go through these, and that's part of the working. Mr. Dominic Carvajal, our FEDC attorney, I've given him the packet and requested him to review all these documents on behalf of the FEDC, to brief us and to inform us the status of these documents and what it is, to ensure that we understand. And in the first read, especially with a document called the Sales Tax Remittance Agreement. And again, these are draft documents. You may look at it and say, there's an $80,000, where did that come from, that amount come from? This is just a draft document to show you what the document would look like. The final version would be negotiated. The final version would be approved by our attorney. And then the final version would come back to you for your approval. Okay, but the sales tax remittance agreement is pretty basic. It basically says that the city will remit to the Floresville Economic Development Corporation the amount of monies that they owe us based on the sales tax receipts that we get every month. It goes on right now. We don't have a formal agreement other than the law with the city. The city manager ensures that we get the funds as soon as they receive them. They cut the check, get it signed, and give it to us. This just formalizes the agreement that's already in place. It's not anything new, it doesn't change anything, it just says the city manager or the city and the Floresville Economic Development Corporation are working together to ensure that we receive the funds that we're supposed to receive. That's the document in there. There's a document in there called arbitrage sales tax and no arbitrage certificate. If you read this thing, and you look at it in the first blush, it seems like we're putting up our firstborn and all the land that we own and everything else that the FTC owns in order for us to borrow this money. That's not what it says. It has some conditions on there. Basically what it's saying is if we borrow this money, we're going to get $2.1 million that we're borrowing. We can't take that $2.1 million and play the stock market, or each one gets a little piece and we go off to Pashata and hoping to come back for more. No, Freddie. And basically it limits what we can do with the funds. And it limits us to what we say we're going to do with the funds. We're going to work on the sports facilities. We're going to look to enhance and improve the sports facilities in the city. And in good faith, we're going to contract to get that thing done. And the funds that we get will be used to pay that. So we can't take this money and go speculating and trying to make more money. Even though, it'll be sitting in our accounts. But as we have with other loans that we've borrowed, the money is set aside and all the charges against those funds are in that one account. So we know how much we received, we know how much we spent, and that the monies are being spent for the things we said we're going to spend. Okay? So basically it has a lot of language, and again our attorney is reviewing all this, and he would advise us on the document and what we do or do not agree to. And then you got the two resolutions, and then you got a certificate of resolution, which has something to two-page copy. What this does is basically says that you, the board of directors, our president, and our secretary, you vote, and if you approve this or don't approve or you abstain, we record the action on this document. And then the president and the secretary, Mr. David Longoria, secretary of the board, the president, Sarah Mendoza, would sign the document, report back to the city council, this is what the board did. And it basically formalizes the action that y'all took. So it's a pretty cut and dry document. It just says on this day we met, and the people that were present, which is all of us, and then what action was taken, and yeas or nays, the motion, if any was made, who seconded, and who voted yes, and who voted no, and who abstained. We report that, present it back to the city council, and back to the folks who we're trying to get the money from. So those are all the documents that we have. I know this is like taking a fire hose to satisfy a thirst. There's a lot of information in a very short term, very short time. But Ms. Tara Chumley is here from Government Corporation, Capital Corporation. She can answer questions on this. Also, Mr. Dominic Carvajal is here. And with the presence of our attorney, any consultation he provides us, we can do it in executive session. Any questions we ask of him, and if we ask for a legal opinion or his legal counsel, and at that point we can adjourn the open meeting, or not adjourn, but move from open meeting to executive session. Ask the questions of the attorney, and then satisfy the questions, come back into open session, and then the board can decide to do what it wants to do tonight. So any questions, Tara? I know this is, like I said, a lot of information. Some of you have been on the board before and entered into the discussions as to the feasibility of us taking on this project. We agreed last year, back in September 2011, agreed to set aside these funds. We did our due diligence on the amount of money that we have. Can we pay for this and still continue all the operations that we have? Based on the amounts of sales taxes that we're projected to earn, what we've earned so far this year, but what the future looks like. And based on all the actions that we're taking, especially with the business part, with all the companies that are coming in, and then all these new developments, the projections that we're looking at, it looks better than what it did last year at this time for the future. And as you know, Floresville, Wilson County, the greater San Antonio area, and Texas as a whole, we've not been affected by the national recession that plagued us for some time. We actually did well. We didn't suffer great losses of foreclosure to people losing their homes, their jobs. Our unemployment rate is relatively good. It's good in the San Antonio area. It's good in Texas. And then, nationwide, we're doing very well. So I think based on that, then we're in a good position to take this project on. It will be modified to some extent. All the documents and the loan documents, the promissory notes, would all be negotiated for the final terms, and we would get the best terms possible for the FAC. Protect the interest of the FAC as a separate entity, and as an entity, set up by the City Council and the voters of Floresville to look over our economic development in Floresville and the greater Floresville area. So I think that we're in a good position to do that and still take on a project of this nature. What I can't give you right now is what the project will look like, because I don't know. And I think all of y'all have heard the discussion. I know the City Council has met with different people, different consultants. They have different plans. They have different views of what this would look like. And we haven't, it's not been determined. This is the monies that we're borrowing. Then if we're borrowing the money, does the FPC control the project in terms of the actual execution of the loan? Who pays for what, and do we control that? And then in this consultation with the council and the staff, city manager, what the project would look like, how much it would cost. Keep in mind, all we would have is $2.1 million. So that has to be taken into consideration. But at that point, I'll stop talking and see if you'll have any questions.
Go ahead, Tara, you please come to the board and introduce yourself. Give us a little.
It's hard to tell me where to stand in the circle. I'm Tara Chumley, I'm with Government Capital. I'll tell you a little bit about Government Capital. We've been in the municipal finance arena for 20 plus years in Texas. So we work nationwide, but we have a special affinity for Texas because it is our home as well. And so we know a lot more about what we can do in Texas. I've been with Government Capital for over 5 years, and we've worked with hundreds of cities in Texas, EDCs, school districts, fire departments, volunteer fire departments. As I came down from Dallas, I passed all these little cities, and we did sports lighting for this one, and we did the volunteer fire department for Kyle, and so as we go down the 35 corridor, you can see what we've done pretty easily. But I would love to answer any questions you might have for me.
Yes, when or if funds are given to EDC, we will have control of those funds,
Yes, definitely.
not the city.
No, you would be, whatever agreement you come to with the vendor or the project manager, contractor, whatever the terms are that you set up, you would pay them out through those terms. It would be delegated by whoever you authorize to be your authorized signer. They would be, basically you'd be setting up a checking account, whether it's in an account that you guys have in escrow or We have an escrow account agent that you guys can use. You would be basically writing a check off of that account, just like you're writing out off your FBTC account.
Both loans are gonna be into one loan or?
No, it's two separate notes. The smaller note, basically that money would go straight to pay off the existing debt. And, that one would pay out in 4 years. So you have a much lower interest rate because it's a lot less of a risk for any investor on that. So we like, that's a smaller rate. You can save some money on it and just get it
How much
out of the way.
will we save?
You'll be saving, I haven't done the numbers since we got you a better rate, because when we showed it to you originally, the very first blush, we were writing it at the same 3.45, but since it's a lower rate, when we had looked at it before, you're gonna save almost 21 to 25,000 with that variable rate factor in there. So when the colonel said 12 to 13, and it could be more than that, it just depends on, because this is a fixed rate for the rest of the time.
Fixed rate.
Yes, so for your 4 years, it'll only be that 2.8.
And currently, we have 4 years to pay off this, 211,000 also.
But more expensive.
But at a higher
Yeah,
rate.
it's a higher rate, yes.
Yeah, so that's all we did, we just matched that. And we can do it, we didn't want to roll it into the term, into the larger term, unless you guys want to do that. It'd be at a higher interest rate because the larger loan is the larger, but we could have done heavier payments at the front, but you don't want to have, when you can take advantage of a 2.823, put it in at 3.45, just so you're writing one check instead of two.
And we also have the freedom of paying that out at any point without penalty, right?
Now, on the, you have to make it whole, which there's no penalty, but you just make it whole. So whatever the amount would be with that 2.823 less however many days you take it out early.
Not that we want to do that, but
Yes.
knowing that we have the freedom to do.
Right, now, we've got it right here. It says it's fixed and non-callable on there, and that's something that we can negotiate, like we were talking about when the colonel was talking about negotiating the other terms. Those things are still negotiable, so. And I think the only reason that they made that they did fixed and non-callable for the entire term on that one is because it's at such a good rate. And so with it all at that rate, they made it that way. And I can tell you that a lot of things lately have been refinanced that were supposedly non-callable. So.
For this amount of funds, the total amount, how much would it come to, total?
With the interest and everything, I don't have that.
I think
in
just
front of
looking at
me.
it based
was-
on what I saw, and just doing a rough calculation, interest would be about $1,057,000 and $193 or something like that.
Yeah, it's
Over
it's
25
not
years.
Over 25
Over 25,
years,
okay.
yeah, it's not, but that's part of why this Schedule 1, if you look at it, has, you can, and it's down in the additional notes at the bottom, but you can make additional payments towards the principal in increments of 25,000, and that can be negotiated as well. You could say it's 5,000, but they set it at 25. And any prepayment will be made against the principal at that point, and basically do it like a mortgage loan where it would come off at the end. But because it's an adjustable rate, at the 5th year when the rate's going to adjust, instead of continuing for the remainder of the 25-year term at the same cost and just keep bringing it closer in, like a 20-year term, you could go in and say, well, we want to lower, we want to see what it would be to, shorten the term. We want to be, and it would be just part of re-amming that schedule. You wouldn't have to go back through all of this again.
And again, we're still reviewing all the documents, especially on the loan agreement, trade loans, et cetera. That would be, negotiated with government capital, our own attorney, Mr. Dominic Carvajal, and the city has, Mr. Lou Rosenberg's office serves, I don't know, as the bond counsel for the city.
No, Chris.
No,
For the city attorney.
Yeah, so, but Dominic is our attorney, so he would be the one to review and advise us on this. And then we would negotiate with Terra's company on the terms of the note, you know, and get the best terms we can get for us, for the FEDC. And keeping everything within the parameters of what it is that we agreed to do and what we want to do. And then basically tonight's action would be the approval of the resolutions where we, if the board agrees, that we enter into two series of negotiations. One is to renegotiate or refinance the loan that we have with Wells Fargo, given these terms. And again, that, you know, when the final documents are drawn up, those will be reviewed again by our attorney and myself. And any board member that wants to join in with us, please do so. But we bring it back to the board for final. So that's one action. Second item is to borrow $2.1 million. And again, this is just saying that we agreed to do that. The terms and the schedules and everything would be negotiated and worked out as we move on. You know, we have time working with government capital to do all this. And then I come back to you with the final documents. You approve the final documents, then, you know, we, in essence, effect the note or the loans with government capital. But nothing will be done without you reviewing it.
I have a
Sir, please,
question.
go ahead.
I have a question for Dominic. This is all legal by the bylaws. Right?
Well, if you're asking for advisory opinion, then I'm going to ask that you do so in closed session so that we don't violate the attorney-client privilege.
So if y'all want to do that, we'll go to closed session.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, do I have a motion? It is 8:09. We're back in open session. Do I have a motion for CNA to adopt resolution authorizing finance agreement with Government Capital Corporation to refinance certain debts and for enhancement, higher expansion, of sports facility benefit committee of Floresville. Remember, there's gonna be two motions. We got schedule 1, schedule 2 on the government capital. So make sure you specify which motion you're voting, please.
I motion to adopt a resolution authorizing financing agreements with Government Capital Corp for the enhancement and or expansion of sports facilities for the benefit of the community of Floresville in the loan amount of $2.1 million, subject to the approval by our FEDC attorney Dominic Carvajal, and authorizing our executive director Colonel Jesse Pettis in finalizing all terms and agreements.
Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Ortiz. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
No public input? Now ready to vote? Open Meetings Act?
He was asking for citizens' input.
No?
Okay, do I have a
Duly noted by
motion
the
for
paper.
the second?
Yes, I move to make a motion to adopt the resolution of authorization of financial agreement with Government Capital Corp to refinance a certain debt of $211,374, subject to approval by